Good evening to you all. We're actually going to sort of get a beginning here. The weather is terrible, and we know that there are people who normally show that may be a little bit late. But I'll introduce myself. My name is Donald Denome. I'm the co-chair of the Highlands Neighborhood Council, along with Nancy. Where did Nancy go? Oh, there she is, along with Nancy Judge. And this subcommittee will be taking over from me here shortly. The only thing I'm really here to do right now is to introduce our monthly police report. We'll start off with that, and then we will go into the council subcommittee. So if you care to start off.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, I'm Mike Kilmont, the captain assigned to this sector of the city, the Bravo sector. Pleased to be here tonight. And I just want to go over some of the crimes that have been committed in the last month in this sector of the city. But more importantly, after that, I'd like to hear any concerns you have, problems that you have in the neighborhood, anything that we could help with, any concerns. So why don't I go over the crimes that we had. I did pass out a few maps. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough to go around. I should have probably printed a few more. Didn't anticipate this big a crowd, but okay, thank you.
You want to know who doesn't have them yet?
You have to hold the mic.
Close. Can everybody hear all right?
Yep.
Okay. We had only one aggravated assault, which is never a good thing, but not much compared to what we usually have in a month for this area. So it happened over on Princeton Boulevard. There was a domestic-related incident. There was an arrest made in that a male had hit his wife and threatened his children. We did have 5 burglaries, which isn't good. We're working on that. I think we made some headway. We found a house up on Oakland Street. And this is the second time it's happened in the city, in this sector, so I'm looking into this. What had happened is some people had gotten into this house that were drug dependents, and they'd taken advantage of an elderly male that was living there. And they're staying at his house, and we were able to get them all moved out of the house. We were able to get the building inspector up to work on condemning the basement. There's some work that needs to be done with the house. We got elder services in to work with the elderly gentleman. But it's just something we're going to be keeping an eye on. We're also going to be keeping an eye on abandoned properties where this might happen. So after that, 2 people were actually arrested in that incident on Oakland Street too. So after that, we haven't had any more breaks. And one of the breaks had been on the nearby street on Hawthorne Street. So we think that those people may have been responsible for that. So just let me go over some of the breaks we've had. Out at Westford Street, we had a break. The woman had been away since August of 2018, so we're not sure exactly when this happened, but somebody entered her home and stole some jewelry and a safe. There was no signs of forced entry there, and the woman says that she keeps her doors locked at all times. So I don't know if possibly it may have been somebody who's familiar with her that may have had access to the home. We're still investigating that. We also had a break-up on Newbury Street. Again, no signs of forced entry. Quite a bit of money was taken, almost $13,000 in money was taken from a bag that was left in a desk drawer, as well as an iPad and a golf bag and an iPhone and a charger. We had another break up at Campbell Drive. An arrest was made in regards to that. They knew the person who came in. He came in demanding money, and he wound up stealing a phone and fled the residence. I talked about the break on Hawthorne Street. Quite a bit of jewelry was taken. We believe those people I talked about were responsible for that. There was another break up on Chatham Street down the road here. They believe it was made through entries gained through a rear door, which was unlocked. The woman had left for just a short time to run some errands and go to the gym. Some jewelry was taken from her home. We also had car breaks. Moving on to the car breaks, we had 6 of those. One happened over here on Norcross Street. No signs of forced entry. Some sunglasses and some change was taken. Pratt Ave, a vehicle was rummaged through. An extra set of keys that were in the vehicle are missing. Common thing, and I know it comes up at a lot of these neighborhood meetings, is entry in the cars through unlocked doors. I think the department through their social media put out something recently just to make people aware to keep their doors locked. Sanders Ave, we had a vehicle broken into, motor vehicle window was smashed, purse was stolen. 758, out of bound on Middlesex Street, motor vehicle entered, no forced entry, that was out on Middlesex Street in the apartments out there. Parker Street and Greenfield Street, these happen on the same date, believe they're related. There's a vehicle broken into on Parker Street, no signs of forced entry. Nearby on Greenfield Street, we had a vehicle broken into, and this was actually one of those Ring cameras. They caught a description of the person. It was a male wearing a hood and a red hat. We didn't have a very accurate description of him, but it was caught on film. Happened late at night. Disorderly, we only had one incident. That was one of those gentlemen that was locked up on Oakland Street. He was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. He was highly agitated, swearing at officers and fighting. We did have a robbery. We had 4 of those, which is kind of a lot for this area. One was at 672 Chelmsford Street. A handgun was used in that. Victims were in the home, and when somebody came in and demanded money, that's still under investigation. We had 2 robberies at the CVS on out of Middlesex Street. Both of these happened late at night. One of the first time it happened on the 26th, there was an arrest made on that. The second one just happened a couple nights ago on the 11th, and it's under investigation at this time. We had another robbery down on Doan Street. A male was robbed at knife point. Apparently he was panhandling up near the Lowe's by the bank up there, and some people approached him and started giving him a hard time and wound up robbing him. And that is it for the crimes in this area in the last month. But more importantly to me at these meetings is I like to hear if there's any problems we can help with, anything that's going on. Go ahead, Don.
Got a good one.
Yeah.
Gunshots, D Street, South Loring, South Walker.
Yeah.
That's been like several nights.
Did it happen? I know it happened one
Shooting,
night.
they're shooting into the air, evidently. They're not shooting anyone in particular.
Yeah, we are investigating that, but did that happen more than once?
Yo, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking into that, and we've had some extra patrols up there.
Yeah, I've seen a few at that time, yeah. Yeah, it's happened at least 3 times.
Okay.
And whoever it is just, for some reason, walks up to the corner, fires a gun in the air and walks away.
Okay. And has it always been late in the night when you heard
Yeah.
it, early morning hours?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. Ma'am, you had a...
That was the same one.
Same thing? Okay. Yes, sir.
I got a problem with a business, Gutter King at the corner of Air Ave and Boston Road.
Okay.
A parking situation there.
All right.
This morning I went out about 9:30 for an appointment.
Mhm.
And I live on Penn Ave. I'm coming out of Penn Ave onto Air Ave.
Yeah.
There's a pickup truck parked to my left, making visibility poor. There's another car parked with half the car is actually into the Penn Ave intersection. There were other cars parked on Penn Ave on that side. I had to edge out, and when I did, a car coming from my right almost hit me. All right, I get out there and I realize there's an 18-wheeler double parked in front of Gutter King.
Okay.
That extended all the way from Boston Road, almost up to Penn Ave. Opposite him, double parked, was an auto glass truck. So I had to squeeze through. I literally had that much room between my mirror and the auto glass truck
Yeah,
as I was squeezing through.
That's not acceptable. We'll get out there tomorrow morning.
I get out to Boston Road.
Yeah.
To the left, there's supposed to be no Gutter King parking. There's signs all over the fence there. Gray van parked there.
Okay.
Totally invisible coming from the left. I had to edge out again. Car had to swerve around me to not have an accident with me.
All right. I'll get down there
We have
tomorrow.
had more problems with that company since they moved in there. I've been living in my house for 32 years almost. They call my wife the bitch of the neighborhood because she used to go to work around 2:30 in the afternoon, and they'd be having deliveries out there, and they wouldn't let her pass. They'd call her all kinds of names. My son, just recently, the last couple of weeks, someone was changing their oil almost in front of my house. At lunchtime, he said, hey, I don't want you doing that in front of my house. I live here. I don't want oil all over my,
Right.
that's where I park my car. He said, F you, all right? We know about you people in the neighborhood. We don't care about you. So we are talking about the whole business. It has this attitude about our neighborhood, and I'm fed up with it. okay? Like I said, since they moved into that neighborhood, we have had nothing but problems with them. They're absolutely, I don't care how much taxes they pay, I've been paying taxes for 32 years.
Right, they can't be changing oil in the street or doing the things.
And I'm fed up with it,
Yeah.
okay? I really had it. I called the station and reported this when this happened, and I believe they must have sent someone out, but when I came home, the car was still parked, sticking out into Penn Ave. The car was still parked on Boston Road, blocking visibility to the left.
All right. I'll go by, I'll speak to the business owner, but after that, we're gonna monitor it too. It might not, get better overnight, but we
Well,
will
I'm
address it.
every
again.
time I go out there and find
Yeah,
them like
call
that, I'm
us,
gonna
please.
call. So you're gonna hear from Paul Sweeney at
Okay.
Penn Ave. You're gonna see my name
All
on
right.
the
No, we
reports.
appreciate the call. We're definitely gonna take care of it.
I'm, like I said, I've had it up to here.
Okay,
Mike, that's been a problem. We've been trying to
yeah,
work on that.
okay. Thank you, Council. Yes, sir.
I just have a general question. We have about 100,000 people in the city of Lowell.
Yes.
And we probably have a student population of about 14,000 people, kids. I'm just wondering, has there been a lot of issues or complaints with regards to the student population that we have in the city right now?
No, I would say overall, it's not a major problem. Occasionally, like sometimes downtown, when the bars get out occasionally, there might be a
But
disorderly or a
specifically in
fight.
the neighborhoods, where they actually reside?
Occasionally from time to time, they might be the victim of a crime or something might happen. We respond with UMass Lowell PD to loud parties on the weekend. But for the most part, I'd say, we have a pretty good, the students don't cause a major amount of problems in the city, I would say. Yes, sir.
Maybe I haven't been around the house that long, but I haven't seen any patrols, checking the vehicles the way the wrong way up Wild Street. I
Okay.
don't see any patrols
All
here
right.
at all.
I know you had mentioned that at the meeting
Yeah,
last
I
week.
mean, it's not a extremely serious thing, but
No, it could be, so we're gonna get on
Some
top of
kid
it.
gets hit, it will be.
Yeah.
In view of the uptick in the burglaries and the robberies, that's quite an increase for up here.
It is.
Is it going to be, there will be more cruiser surveillance?
Yes, we've had more people up in the area. We've even put people out, like detectives up in the area in unmarked cars, so we're trying to address it. After that incident on Oakland Street where we shut that house down, that's been about 2 weeks now, there hasn't been any more breaks, so I'm thinking those people may have been involved in some of them anyway.
Okay, you said about focusing on abandoned property.
Yeah.
There is an abandoned house on 51 Wedge Street. It's been abandoned probably for about 5 years. We mentioned it every single neighborhood meeting, and nothing is ever done about it.
Okay.
That was 51 Wedge.
51 Wedge.
Okay. Well, I'll look into that tomorrow. I can find out who owns the property and we'll take
I
measures.
believe they live in New Hampshire.
Okay. Yes.
We can barely hear you back here, so.
Okay.
if you could, and phrase the questions or get the microphone to the person speaking so we can know.
Can you hear me now? I'm not used to it. Yeah, okay. I'll just speak louder. She had asked me about an abandoned property up at 51 Wedge Street, not too far from here. So we're going to look into that tomorrow. Okay?
Anyone else?
No, I think that's about it for now. Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you for the police update. I think we've had our questions answered up to this point. So now we are turning it over for the subcommittee meeting. So I will, here with us, John. You can introduce yourself in case people don't know who you are and continue on.
Hi, good evening. I'm City Councilor Karen Cirillo, and I am the chair of the Neighborhood Subcommittee. And I am joined by Senator Kennedy, Councilor Jim Milanazzo, who is also the chair of the Zoning Subcommittee, Councilor Vesna Noon, Councilor John Leahy, Councilor Rita Mercier, and the mayor is back there, Mayor William Samaras. And also we have Fire Chief Winward. So this evening is about the reason why we're having this joint neighborhood and zoning subcommittee meeting is because zoning affects your neighborhood. And that's the bottom line. Any type of zoning ordinances that happen, it affects your neighborhood. So we are here to listen to your issues. Unfortunately, Eric Slagle could not be here this evening, so we are going to probably be taking lots of notes because I know that I'm not an expert on zoning, so I apologize in advance. And also, Paul Sweeney, thank you so much for bringing that up about your street. So anyway, I guess what we'll do is we will roll call. That's what we're going to do now.
Counsel Cirillo.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Noon. Here. Counsel Milonazo. Here. Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
6 present.
Okay, so it's not very often that you have 6 counselors here, actually more. You have most of the, if not, yeah, most of the council here. It's not very often that you get us all together to sit down and listen to what's happening in your neighborhoods. And we felt it was so important to get out here into the neighborhoods and to listen to your voices that we are here today. And I'm very thankful to the Highlands Neighborhood Group and getting this wonderful area from Lowell to have it here at Lowell Catholic, because there is a fantastic turnout, and I'm so happy to see everyone here this evening. So let's start with questions or comments, and I will walk around.
Can I just get
Oh, sure,
That's
absolutely.
Thank you, Chairwoman Cirillo. The zoning subcommittee did meet with the neighborhood subcommittee back April 1st out in Pawtuckettville. I see Deb Forgione here, and I think it's wonderful looking out in the audience, looking at Pawtuckettville and Centerville and Belvedere and neighborhoods that are here to listen to the joint neighborhood and zoning subcommittee. The zoning subcommittee has been meeting a little over a year on the issue of, first we started with just added uses to the zoning ordinance, which we did get approved. And then we got to the amendments to the rental property ordinance, which developed a lot of discussion, not only among landlords, and I see the landlords are here, and thank you for being here, but also the neighborhood groups. So out of those meetings, and we had probably 4, maybe 5 of those meetings, the issue of enforcement came up, which is why Council Cirillo mentioned Eric Slagle, who's Director of Development Services, couldn't be here tonight, but we as a joint body didn't want to cancel this meeting, even though Eric is obviously important to the discussion. We still wanted to make sure that we had this meeting, continue our discussion with the neighborhood groups, with the landlords, to talk about what we as a city could do in the way of, number 1, listening to the concern, and number 2, enforcement. If we need to bring more people into the inspectional services office, we're going to start our budget hearings actually next week, this coming July 1st. We'll bring that message back to the administration, and I see Sean here from the city manager's office is here as well taking notes. So again, it's a good time to hear your concerns. We'll certainly take a lot of notes. We'll do our best to answer your questions. But at the end of the day, we've been told by a lot of people who have more knowledge than I do, people like David Roulette, who is now in the town of Draken, but he talks about just enforcing the state sanitary code. As long as you have the state sanitary code being enforced, you're going to be able to mitigate some of the issues. I'm hoping that's the case, but if not, we're still prepared to move forward some amendments to the property, to the rental property ordinance. So I just wanted to open with that before we get into questions, because it's been a long process, and we're listening and we're taking notes, and at the end of the day, we want to improve the conditions, the quality of our neighborhood. So that's what this is really all about. So again, I don't know if before we open it up for questions, if any of my colleagues wanted to add anything. Okay, there you go. Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you everyone for being here again, and so we'll open it up for questions or comments. Any questions? Comments? All right, thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
Jeff Dillon from DeRosa Properties, 81 Farmland Road. I'm very happy to hear that you a discussion, the state sanitary code. I've spoken in other meetings, I'm not gonna take a lot of time. I'll give you the handout showing.
You're giving this to us last?
Yes, I have more updated regarding some of the questions in the ordinances that can't be asked because of fair housing. It's all in here. But again, I think I speak for the group that if it is the state sanitary code, we'll work very hard to be good neighbors, good property owners, and do whatever the council wants. Okay?
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want the mic or?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Here you are.
I'm landlord, I own a apartment house in Highland. About the enforcement, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I like to say, I'm strongly against the ordinance. I used to have tenants on the lease, 3 people. Actually, more than 10 people live there in Highland property. I ever complained to the Section A inspector about this in his annual inspection. He told me he could not ask and check who lived there. To landlords, more people live there, it costs the landlord more water bill and the liability problem. When I saw non-tenants in my rental units, I asked tenants. They always told me they are guests. In Lowell, I said no. I believe you all know that there are always more people living in a rental unit than ones listed on the list. Especially in the poor area like Echo, Centralville, and some area of Highland, I experienced this. They are very crowded living environment areas, obviously. I know my tenants complain to me about the neighbor, 2 units, more than 30 people live there. So I understand, since low income people live there to save money. You know that in the Centralville, very overcrowded. And then you go to the Highland, Low Highland, many minority live there, overcrowded. I experienced this. In Mass, if people live in a unit for more than certain days, I heard from court, more than 30 days, they will automatically become tenants, though their names are not on lease, no matter whether landlords get acknowledged or not. If you go to the court to let them move out, judge will not buy your request. I experienced this. Landlords are not authorized law enforcement agent. Landlords could not take any legal actions by asking law prohibit questions to tenants or applicants, intruding tenants' privacy and eviction tenants without court judgment and a warrant, unless Lowell City pass a new law and give landlord police power to do this. So I would think when you do the enforcement, you should give either, because we are not a training law enforcement agent, we are not, or you give us police power to evict people. It's very hard. If you go to the low housing court, I experienced this very, very hard. And then I talked to judge, I said I have as I said, 3 bedrooms, 3 people on the list, Section A. More than 10 people live there. And then trash, and the water cost me too much. And the fire department come here a couple of times. I have no control. I complained to Section A. They reject. They said we cannot do that. So landlord pay property tax to city. City should allocate the rental property tax only for city rental house management. With the rental tax and the city other resource, city have the police detective department, attorney, and also, excuse me, and inspectors. City should work with the judgment system like Lowell Housing Court, Lowell Distributed Court, and legally take action, check each rental unit, invest tenants' background, DNA, and paperwork, get court judgment and warrant to enforce the ordinance of no more 3 unrelated people allowed. Especially, I think the city should enforce the sanity code, because every day I'm landlord. My unit, for example, one unit in Highland, 5 years ago, the tenants move in. I only went to the one time. After they move in one time, they never let me go inside. And also, I don't know who live there. I could not evict them because they pay the rent. I complained to the judge. The judge said, oh, the tenants don't admit they have more people. And then judge said, oh, you cannot do that. You have to prove blah, 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 blah. I could not get rid of them. So after they live there for almost 6 years, I even don't know what else people live there. So I would think the city should get a court judgment and a warrant to enforce the ordinance of no more 3 unrelated people allowed. In special sanity code, city should enforce the sanity code. In this way, no one or institute could break laws. Thank you very much.
You want, I'll get her.
Who crowded?
Okay, you want to comment first?
Senator
Oh.
Kennedy would like to
Okay.
comment.
I just have one question. Is anybody, is this working?
Yes.
I guess so. Okay. You mentioned that you went to court and that, you mentioned that you went to court, and when you went to court, they were able to say that they were there more than 30 days,
Yes,
and so you couldn't evict them?
I could not.
Okay, and so in that property, was it a 2-family property? How many units were at the property?
2 units.
2 units.
It's Section 8 is very hard to get rid of.
Right, but if it's Section 8, then they had leases.
Yes.
So
3
how were the other people able to establish that they were there for more than 30 days if they're not on the lease?
I don't know. I cannot check their unit. Every time I go there to collect the rent, they don't let me get into, as I said, another unit. They move in for 5 years. I only have one time to access. Other than that, every time I make an appointment, I cannot get into.
Okay. But they just said, we've been there more than 30 days, that's it? They didn't have to prove that to the court, that they were there for more than 30
The
days?
judge asked me to prove that. Even Section 8 inspector, each year they do the inspection. And then I complained to the Section 8 inspector. He said I cannot ask them.
So the judge, instead of wanting them to prove they were there more than 30 days, it was, you had to prove that they weren't there, that they weren't there? Yep, okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, so I had a situation like that some time ago, and it was a Section 8 person, and when we sign a lease with Section 8, we have to, when we sign a lease with Section 8, typically, we have to acknowledge that, you know, person A, B, and C are gonna live here, okay? And as time went on, you know, I always noticed this white van out there, day and night. I'd actually go there at midnight, hey, is that van there? I asked one of the friendly tenants of mine, hey, is the van out there at 3 in the morning? You know, can you check it when you go out in the bathroom or something? Turned out the person was living there. And when I went to housing, we're supposed to report unauthorized people living there. They did nothing. You know, it wasn't Lowell, it was another place, but they said, well, you have to prove that they're living there. I said, wait a second. You told me that I have to enforce, you know, acknowledge that these are the only people living here. Now I'm telling you that there's someone else living there. And based on this evidence, they said, well, you have to, if they have mail or something like that. I says, I can't go in their mailbox and take their mail. It's kind of like a double-edged sword pointed outwards, and there's no way to do anything about it.
So, can I ask a question? So, So I'm gathering that this means that there are 3 people on the lease paying rent, and there are 7 that are living there that aren't paying rent.
No, they just pay the 3 people.
Just the 3 people.
And then
So
the
she's losing out on rent for 7 people, and this gentleman is losing out on rent for several others, and they're basically living there for free. Great system.
I must admit, I've had a similar situation. I have a 3-family, owner occupied, 3rd floor apartment, inspected, suggested only 2 people live there. I rented it to 2 people, became 3, became 4, became 5, and there was nothing I could do about it, not a thing. Oh, and actually it became 5.5, because one of those had a girlfriend who had a baby who would occasionally be there for a while. So it got pretty crazy. Yes?
It's really sad to say, but unfortunately in Massachusetts, the tenants have more rights than the landlords, and I know this by personal experience. And you're really at a loss. I mean, you can lose your house if you don't have multiple units that you're renting to other people. If you're relying on a rent that somebody isn't paying, and you have to come up with it, and you don't have it, and then you get somebody very clever, like we had somebody who was an attorney, who knew the system, and she got away with a lot, and we nearly lost the place. So it's really very sad. I mean, the landlords do not have the upper hand unless you have a tenancy at will, and then you have a little more control. But I don't know how it works with Section 8. So it's...
Well, if I could, with Section 8, you have a lease. So you're not a tenant until you have a lease. But from the city's point of view, it's not that you're missing out on the 7 other people that are living there on that rent. It is that those 7 people shouldn't be there in the first place. That's what's illegal in the first place. They shouldn't be there.
You know, just one more thing, I just want to caution something. The example I gave happened to be Section 8. That's not a statement about Section 8 people or anything. Because I actually have a situation like that going on right now with one of my units, and I can't get the people out. But the only reason I brought up the Section 8 example was to say that there's actually another, like, government agency at the other end of this, and it's still difficult to prevent. You know, you would think that with a government agency paying the rent or participating in paying the rent, that somehow that would make it easier, but it doesn't. So I wasn't trying to slight Section 8.
I get it, yeah.
You don't need to bring that. I can speak loud enough.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just have
you
a simple question for the council. What are we doing to enforce the state sanitary code? It works. All of us that have units have our certificates that says you can have so many people for the state sanitary code. Because we've been talking about this for a year, and I'm interested to know, is anything since the last time we spoke, is anything being done in the inspection department to help that along? And is there anything we can do to help?
We certainly appreciate the question. The answer is yes, something has been done. If you recall, at the last meeting, we talked about setting up a hotline number, and that hotline number now has been set up, and I believe it's been emailed to the people who are at the April 1st meeting.
Okay,
It's also on the city's website. It's also on the city's website. So you can call that number, and then the health department, the code inspectors would follow up on any complaints, such as the complaints we're hearing this evening. They'll get followed up on, but there is now this emergency number that you can call. Council Mercia?
That number has always been there. Sandra McNamara was a previous.
Okay, right.
But you could have a number, you could have rules, and if people don't follow it, then what are we gonna do?
Right.
You have good people here that are called landlords that are following the rules, and they're frustrating people in the neighborhoods because rules are being broken through no fault of their own, and they can't get out of it. When they call the proper department, it's not happening. So it's a vicious cycle, and we need answers. And I don't know, I'm frustrated listening to this. because they're following rules, and when we need certain things in place, nobody's responding.
Correct, and again, we're gonna bring all this back to the inspectional services office, the city manager's office, but again, at the end of the day, the quality of your neighborhood, be it the trash that might be out front after a party at a house, or public urination going on, or overcrowding, that's something that we need to work on as a community, rather than the neighborhoods are not dragged down by virtue of bad behavior. And again, it comes down to enforcement, and really that's what we're following up on with these meetings.
Has anybody put an ad in the Lowell Sun, a full-page ad, basically telling people this is the number to call? Because I'll tell you, half the people don't know.
Okay. All right. We'll
We
bring that back
all
to
know
the
because we're
agenda.
close to it, but there's a majority of people in the city do not know.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Mr. Milanazzo, are you thinking of a specific example when you talk about public urination, a party, and it sounds like something over by the university?
Correct. We've had complaints
Yeah.
of properties over by the university
Yeah.
that there have been calls made to City Hall.
Have you had complaints in other parts of the city of the like?
I believe yes.
Because I know
Correct.
that probably happens.
Correct.
And I know the area of the university is well policed by the university police. And I also know, as a landlord, and I know other landlords, we go through great pains to keep our properties up and to make sure the people we rent to are good citizens. And from my experience, they are. So
Right. And I agree with that.
I'm here
Sometimes-
tonight because of that concern. My concern and why I'm here tonight is that neighborhood where I own property.
Now, you in Pawtuckettville, Centerville?
Near the university in Pawtucket.
Okay. Okay. But again, we've had issues in Pawtuckettville where we, again, I don't know you, you're probably a good landlord, but we have issues with, it has not been a good landlord. And that, unfortunately.
No, as a good landlord, I'd appreciate if you, again, do the sanitary code enforcement.
Right, and that's what
Because
that's
that
correct.
seems to be what works.
Right.
But what seems to bother me is a lot of talk, and not tonight yet, but in the past, and it probably will come up tonight, about limiting the amount of people to 3 in a rental unit.
Right, 3 unrelated, because after, as you know, the state sanitary code, after you get above the 3, it becomes a rooming house, and then you fall into the
Well,
rooming house.
you know what?
That's not true at all.
And this discussion has come up in previous meetings, so there's no point bringing it all up again.
Well, I have it here, the state sanitary code.
Yeah, I mean, the sanitary code does the job. What I would suggest, if you want to make some changes, is change this, this 100-year-old ordinance that doesn't even address the current lifestyle and the current type of people who live in these homes today. I think someone had already mentioned in the past, that was designed to prevent bordello, to prevent that kind of thing from going on back many years ago. And this was taken out of mothballs to be used against landlords in the area I'm in, so that they couldn't rent, even if it is in a sanitary way, to more than 3
Unrelated.
students, if you want to use an example, which sounded like students when you were talking about that problem earlier. The students I rent to are perfect citizens, and they're great kids. And if you've got a unit that previously had a family in it that comfortably had 5 people living in it, parents and 2 or 3 children, and now it's not good enough because you've got 4 students, say, in 4 different bedrooms, for example. If that was the case, not the case for me at the current time, but I should think I would be able to do that, meet the sanitary code, help the university and the city, because there's a shortage of housing. God knows the city needs the income in tax revenue and everything from landlords. It's a plus. It's a win-win situation.
No, I understand that.
I can't
You've all
understand.
taken properties that have been, in some cases, even
In
derelict.
some
put them
cases,
back on.
yeah, or properties that would go that
Right.
way.
Right.
But I can't understand where you're going with this whole thing about limiting the amount of tenants that.
Okay, that was a discussion point that was brought forward by the administration, and now we're here having these neighborhood and zoning subcommittee meetings to
Seems
talk
just to
about.
keep on going on and on. I don't see, I drive around, I look at that neighborhood, I don't see major problems with
Okay, well, thanks for your
trash
time.
on the sidewalks and all of that. So thanks for the time.
Would you like mine?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Ken Kaiser. I've been an owner-operator of UPM Real Estate in Lowell for 35 years. I want to thank all the city councilors for being here tonight and all the guests. I'm here tonight to address the issue of student housing. I sat on the sidelines up until tonight, and I decided to come forward and speak. I wanted to speak in support of all the landlords, the property owners, especially those who've been offering their property up to student rentals. 30 years ago, the university was begging the landlords for help. They didn't have enough housing. They couldn't even house their freshmen and transfer students. They even had a housing list published by the university of off-campus housing available to incoming freshmen and transfer students. A lot has changed in the past few years, especially recently. Here is what's changed. The university has built and/or purchased more housing than they can fill. This seems to be the main reason we're here today, discussing student housing. New property owners have come to Lowell, purchasing dilapidated buildings, investing millions of dollars, especially in the lower acre area, and are renting to students. This means that today's students have a choice: on-campus housing or off-campus housing. Why do upperclassmen today wish to move off campus? It's been going on for 50 years. While I've heard a collection of reasons over the years, here are just a few. One, freedom and privacy. Students like to get out and get out from university rule. It's cheaper to live off campus for 12 months than it is to live on campus for 30 weeks. And they close the dormitories for Christmas, Thanksgiving, and spring break. Student athletes, which now, as everyone knows, we have a Division I university. They need and want to be in Lowell for 12 months. They have to train, they're Division I athletes, and they have to be here. Students want to eat what they want, cook on their own, and save money. The issue that some are trying to raise tonight and over these meetings is overcrowding. This is an absurd assumption. Almost all student off-campus students get private rooms. Dormitories, on the other hand, mostly have shared rooms. I know of one recent case where 3 freshman students were forced to live in one Foxhall dorm room, a small room that was barely big enough for 2 students. The square footage per student is much higher off campus than on campus. I don't know of any owners in this crowd or others that I know renting to students that are violating the state laws regarding square footage per person. Some other issues and facts. Properties purchased over the past 5 years by newer owners, renovated and rented to students. This has meant millions of dollars spent providing jobs, infrastructure, and better housing. We have UMass Lowell students with their backpacks walking up and down Salem Street and Merrimack Street, not fearing for their safety for the first time ever. What was once an area of low-income dumps with drug dealers and prostitutes is now a thriving neighborhood of UMass Lowell students. The city has had windfall in this. Their values have gone up in the acre and other areas. They have an increase in tax revenue. And this is in direct contrast to the university. When they buy properties, they take their money off the tax roll. In concluding here, limiting the number of unrelated persons per dwelling unit can be considered unconstitutional and discriminatory. Competition for student housing is good and healthy and contributes to the strength of the city's economy. The city is safer with students in their neighborhoods. Most owners are accountable and are hands-on with their student rentals. Off-campus student housing has been around forever and will continue in the future. More students off campus means more citizens contributing to the local community and the local businesses. Let us please find an amicable solution, one that benefits both the city of Lowell and the property owners who continue to invest millions of dollars into their properties, constantly making Lowell a better and more attractive place to live. Thank you.
If I could add just one thing, I know one of the issues, and I have nothing against students, I were one at Lowell Tech back then.
Yes, right.
Yeah, is that where you have, I have 3 units, 3 families. Used to have 3 cars. Now we have 6, 7, and 8 cars in 3 units. That's part of the problem. That's what has some neighbors a little upset. You know, there's multiple cars. Yeah.
And I've sat with the city council representatives at City Hall, and we talked about a college overlay for parking, easing up to green space within so many miles of the college. Therefore, you can park more cars and less space. Tufts does it for Somerville and Medford.
I think there's a solution. I'm just saying that's one of the gripes that some of the neighborhoods have.
The other thing, instead of selling these properties that the city of Lowell has on their taxes that they foreclosed on, make some pocket parking in some of these neighborhoods that are tight for parking. We talked about that with the city solicitor. We met 6 months ago and we talked about this and we hear nothing back. So there's solutions, they just gotta be.
There's actually an auction coming up, correct?
Yes.
And many of the properties will be sold. They'd be perfect for parking. Keep them in your own property. Needed a parking, exactly, and you get the income from it. We talked about this 6 months ago with the city solicitor.
Like,
Thank you. Stephen Byrne, how are you? I'd like to point out a key thing that he said, which is a very good point, that, you know, it's unfortunate now there are so many more cars to a dwelling. And the key thing is now, it's just that that's the world we live in. You know, we're going on a law that's 100 years old, and I wish it was the simple world that was 100 years ago. But now it's overcrowded, it's everywhere, and it's not gonna get better. People aren't gonna give up a car and take a bicycle. You know, there's multiple ways. It's just people need vehicles, and same thing with the living. You know, I have a 4-bedroom apartment, for instance. It's some students, some young professionals. It's my best house. The rent's there on time, which is amazing. They keep the property clean, they're quiet, they're respectful. If I have an issue with one of the neighbors, I will address it with them. They actually listen to me and move forward with the situation. And I think that's the type of people we should want in Lowell. You know, I have older people and stuff, it's a nightmare. And what we said earlier, the more people live in there, the water bill goes through the roof because they have 6 people living there that aren't supposed to be there, and they think the water's free, and I wish that was the case. So I understand people's frustrations with the way it is, but it's funny to say, you know, I'm on 495 last night, Sunday, Mother's Day, 7 o'clock, and it might as well have been 3 in the afternoon. And I think to myself, wow, there's so many people that live in this geographic, and I just don't think it's gonna get better. So why don't we work together to resolve this and move forward, because it's not the landlords, you know, we're not making these millions of dollars. People just assume, oh, you own property, you must be rich. I'll tell you what, I never see the money. I'm hoping my kids will see the money. And it's a lot of late nights, early mornings, 7 days a week. And I just, it's stressful and frustrating almost to hear this. And I understand where it's originating from, but it's not a resolution to the issue we have. So I think maybe to just kind of accept the fact that there's a lot of population in this area now due to the college. I mean, it's grown so great, but when I started investing in Lowell again, people thought I was crazy. I said, I believe in UMass Lowell. I said, I think that's the lifeline right there. You know, we have all the highways that come right to us, we have the space for it, we have the buildings for it, and I think it's great, but they have bought quite a bit, and it's driven the taxes up quite a bit onto the residential owners and stuff, and understood, you know, maybe we could come to the college and say, hey, listen, you know, you guys are doing great, we love it, but you've bought more than we expected, and now we gotta kind of offset everything else, because we have the whole high school issue, and I'm sure a million other things. And it's, with my families, I see, you know, I've heard people say before, oh, the rents are so high, you guys are making a ton. I'm charging the most ever, making the least amount ever, because I have to eat up the water bills, the taxes, and these people just, how much can the average family afford? And it's expensive with children and just living alone, everyday expenses. So I just think maybe, you know, if we could go by the sanitary code of the building, we do have a lot of big old buildings that have the square footage, which is allowed by the sanitary code. And I'll be the first one to say, I don't think 4 unrelated people are any more safer or dangerous than 4 related people. But, you know, I just hope that we can resolve this and move forward and continue to fund money into the city and bring the upkeep of the city. And I think Lowell has a lot of potential with everything that's going on. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
By the way, I don't want to shut anyone up, but we do have this building till about 8:30. So it's 5 minutes of 8. I think we'll be fine, but I just don't want to shut anybody down. Thank you, please.
My name is Sam. I'm also a property owner in on the property at West First Street. I just want to say almost similar thing that the gentleman just said. This ordinance is 100 years old, and if the city decided to enforce it, I think you should let all the tenants, all the city, all everybody know. Because I talked to a few of my tenants, and they'll never be aware of this kind of stuff. So, and they said, well, this is going to drive the rent a lot higher than it could be. And for affordability below, I mean, with the city, with the people living there, with a small family, they may be fine. But without if only limit to 3 unrelated people, all the young generations, how they can afford it. And I think if you really want to decide to enforce it, you should put post it on the low sign so everybody know. And if the people have the right to vote for it, let them vote.
Done. Oh, I just got one more here and I'll be right over. Yeah, just hold it right close to you.
Okay. Hi, good evening. I just want to do some follow-up from the last meeting that we had. I think one of the topics were education, that we talked about the city of Lowell and how could it get education out to property owners. So I think hopefully that's still on the table about first educating people even through your tax bill at the, when someone's purchasing property at the time of a purchase. There are just ways to educate people to what is the zoning codes of Lowell. And there isn't just one zoning code. There isn't just one zoning code that says there's, you know, minimum of 3 people unrelated. There are other zoning codes which having to do with parking, and also we're talking about neighborhoods and quality of life. So there is a big menu of items that need to get out there and get educated. And I just want to say that I know Ken Kaiser. Ken? Oh, you tonight? Ken Kaiser and I go way back as far as like business. In fact, I bought a condo right across the street from the Lowell South Campus parking lot, and I thought that I hit the jackpot moving to Lowell. Bought my condo. There were 8 condos in a row. And I was tormented every weekend by parties. I was a working girl. I was out of college. That part of my life was different, but I was tormented by it. So I didn't sell it. I kept it, and Ken Kaiser rented it for me, and he did a great job for a couple of years. What I did do was move out of that area and bought myself a single-family house in a single neighborhood. And in that, and what I'm trying to say is that there is places where you're going to have a conjugation of people of different lifestyles. So when people buy into a certain neighborhood, they expect a certain lifestyle. So instead of me fighting that whole 8-unit complex, I moved. And I went out into the suburbs, and I bought a single-family house. So the zoning allows me to go out into that neighborhood and live that kind of life while those kids party it up and enjoy themselves and have a good time. Everyone understands that, but the zoning will put balance in the city that you can have a thriving neighborhood, thriving campus life, but everyone has to live together, and with that zoning code, it helps. Thank you.
My name is Robert Hunt. I live on Florence Avenue in the Highlands. I live in the Highlands.
Okay.
I'm a residential owner. I own a single-family house, but I also own a two-family house. And I implore you tonight not to change that 3 people, because I have people on my street now, and I've had, when Sean Shanahan was there and Dave Olet was working for the city, out to look at the properties of overcrowding. There's a ton of places in Lowell that don't even have off-street parking, because they would take the trolley back in the day. So the idea of, adding it to 4 or 5 or making it unlimited is unrealistic, certainly in the Highlands neighborhood. Now, Pawtuckettville's a different story. They have the kids. We don't see the students living up there, so I don't have that. But I do have a problem with overcrowding, off-street parking. It's ridiculous. It's in the Highlands neighborhood, the lower Highlands, sometimes there's no off-street parking. How can you increase that from 3?
Okay, we have one more up here.
Hi, I'm Jackie Fun, and I'm a tenant. And the reason why I'm against the ordinance is mostly I worry about my rents and rent control, because I understand why landlords have their issues. Like, I've seen some of it. But my main issue for me is that I'm just a tenant. I live in Lowell, I work, and I live with one other person, and I might have to move soon and live with other people. And I know I can't afford to live on my own, and I don't have the option to move back in with my parents. So that's my main concern with this law and the ordinance, is that it will affect me greatly in the next year or so, and I don't have the time to be able to hope for a new job or to be able to get one.
Thank you. I'm going as fast as I can.
My name is Roger. I also the landlord here. We purchased quite a bit of them over these years. I think the main concern I never had any student living in my place and so on, but we purchased an area from 1 bedroom to 4 bedroom. I don't understand is what this 3 non-related or related with more than 3 living in the same place has any harm to the society or to anybody. You have a lot of people have a lot of children now, right? You have 7 or 8 people living in a 4 bedroom. Quite common. If you have a 4 bedroom and rented to 4 unrelated individuals, like this lady are, what's the harm to it? I don't understand. I think the key issue for the zoning is to limit it, let's say how many bedrooms, how many people can be living there. And that is the things that should be focused on. I'm not focusing on what's unrelated or related. And the parking issue, the same thing. With this society right now, people with a lot of kids, they all have adult kids, they may be living together because of their unemployment situation, economic, name it, okay, it's difficult. So the saying is unrelated living near has more car than any related party, that's not true. Like my family, I have and the kids have 4 cars, right? It really doesn't matter if it's related or unrelated. So I think the focusing on the zoning should not be related or unrelated. Instead, I should be limited how many people in how many bedrooms, which I think it used to be doing that on the occupancy permit. And right now, I don't see it anymore. I think that the law in terms of related and unrelated is not to do with anything. If you want to have a better living society, instead I should be limited how many people can be living in how many bedrooms. Thank you.
If I'm correct, I believe the sanitary code does supersede zoning. We have, I think, several sanitary code inspectors who solely go out and do their job for all the landlords, and they judge by square footage or the rooms. And that, say for instance, I got a 4-room, and I have enough space to hold 6 people because the square footage is there under sanitary code. I have the right for those 6 people to be there. I don't know where the zoning law comes into play, because I don't believe we have any zoning. I think we have one zoning officer that would probably go out if there was an issue afterwards, but the sanitary code certificate would still supersede what the zoning officer needs to do, correct?
Thank you. Fire Chief over here.
Thank you. Good evening, I'm Jeff Windward, I'm the fire chief here in the city. And I look at this issue a little bit differently than some other folks. We look at it from a life safety perspective. And there are a lot of good landlords in the city, there are a lot of good tenants in the city that take care of their property. They don't have blocked egress. They have smoke detectors that are installed and working properly, sprinkler systems that are working properly. But there are also other properties in the city that are not taken care of. We find, blocked egress. We find smoke detectors that are down or batteries are missing. And it's often these properties where we have fatal fires and people getting injured in fires. So we look at it from a life safety perspective. And in general, in college dormitories, they're sprinklered, they have hardwired working smoke detector systems with fire alarm control panels. We get to go in them once a year and inspect them and make sure that they're working, make sure that the sprinklers are working. Boarding houses have to be sprinkled. We get to inspect those 4 times a year. And a few people over here have mentioned they have a hard time getting into their properties. And we do as well. We can't just walk into someone's 2-family and decide to do an inspection. But in the boarding houses, the dormitories, we get to go in and inspect and make sure that their fire alarm systems, their sprinkler systems are working, the egress is unblocked. A lot of these buildings have some supervision, especially the dormitories. They'll have RAs, they'll have campus police. The boarding houses, they'll have a building manager that is supervising the building, they'll have keys. It makes it easier for us when we have to respond in an emergency. So in general, we like to see buildings that are well kept, sprinkler systems are installed, smoke detectors are working, and that's kind of the perspective we come in. I can answer any questions if anyone has any questions on the fire codes.
How many people, approximately, how many boarding houses are there in the city?
I believe Council Kennedy said there were, 7 or 8?
Yeah. There's not anywhere near as many as there were before. I asked for a list, I think, several months ago, and I think there were between 8 and 10, I think. None of which were in Pawtucket.
How many, approximately, how many people live in these boarding houses?
I think it varies. It could be probably 10 sometimes.
Right, 10 to 20.
So we're talking a population of maybe a couple of hundred people that live in boarding
We
houses.
do have larger boarding houses. There's one on Middlesex Street. I think it's Fenway Arms or whatever. That's probably got 30 rooms. There might be a couple.
And there's other living situations like the shelter, there's the hospitals.
Right, so maybe you're talking 1,000 people.
Well, I would say it's a lot more than that when you count the dorms, the college dorms.
What my basic point was is, because I've asked this question, I can ask this question about many different things. We're talking about unrelated people. So the question early on was asked, what's the correlation between unrelated, life safety? To me, the most important thing that we could talk about is life safety.
Right,
I agree.
right.
So the question's asked, what's the correlation between related people and unrelated people living in dwellings throughout the city? And is there that correlation showing difference? Like, is there more fires with unrelated or related people? My research has said no, okay? But it's very difficult to get that information. The research that I did, which is amateur compared to yours,
right?
Okay? The main causes of fires is, it's a little rusty right now, but the main causes of fires were kitchen fires,
correct,
which, for my research, with the inexpensive fire extinguisher available on the premises, could extinguish 75% of all those fires. 50% of household fires are caused in the kitchen. Give me latitude for my percentages are slightly off, but it was approximately 50% of all household fires are caused in the kitchen.
Most of them can be put out with a lid, put a lid over the
Right,
pot.
and what I read was, when I researched fire extinguishers, is for all homes that have a fire extinguisher, 75% of those fires are extinguished without ever having to call the police department. So if you just look at kitchen fires, which is 50%, 75% of that will never require a call to the fire department by putting a $25 an ABC fire extinguisher in there.
Sure, fire protection is a big thing. There are a lot of different factors. Smoke detectors, sprinklers, fire extinguishers, having an escape plan. But we always recommend that people call 911 right away when they think they may have a fire. We don't mind coming.
I get that, but
Sure.
the point is this: if the reason for this ordinance is life safety, overcrowding, if that's the real purpose of this ordinance, okay, then, you know, there are very easy things to do to address fire safety, life safety. You know, as you mentioned, beyond fire extinguishers. You know, why not put together a plan, some kind of a resource to, you know, because a nuance that I've learned is you can actually have a fire escape, you know,
Plan.
yeah. You know, and it was suggested to me, have a plan, you post it in the apartment, you give it to the tenant, so if there's ever a fire, this is what you do.
That's a great idea. A lot of hotels nowadays will have a map on the door.
Maybe just ask Chief to see whether it's related or unrelated in the past, whether has any experience or difference.
Well, in the beginning, a long time ago, when they wrote the codes, a lot of the boarding houses will have, you know, locks on the doors. There were a lot of serious fires. There was a big fire on Elliott Street in Lowell, maybe 30 years ago. People were jumping out of windows.
The other thing I want to caution though, which was another thing I would want to say is, you know, I hear all this discussion about parties and everything. You know, and respectfully, your parking issue, okay? First of all, the standard of living is much higher today. So car ownership per household is much higher than it was maybe 20 years ago. So it is a fact of life that, you know, maybe there's a solution out there somewhere. But to simply say that because you have related people or students, let's call it what it is, that's created this problem. No, it's not. Because those same students might be having a job. They're still going to have a car. And they still live in the city. And I could go on, but there's no relationship between related people and unrelated people. If your true motive is to improve life safety, then that does not improve life safety. I'll speculate that it's safer to have students. You have parents, which is different than 30 years ago. They're paying a lot of money for tuition. We get calls from parents all the time. Are there smoke detectors? Are there this? Are there that? They want it safe for their kids. They're paying a lot of money, and they're demanding a lot out of the landlords, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. When you have a parent calling about their son or daughter, it's because they're concerned. That's a good thing. I invite it all the time. But that alone doesn't improve life safety. There are small measures we can do. And there's been no linkage for any of these discussions about how that ordinance will make these things better, whether it's life safety, parking, parties, or whatever else. And when you ask how many parties are there, you know, they'll talk about some party that happened. Well, how is that related to the general population, percentage-wise? How many parties are there in the general population compared to students? Probably not any different.
I think the original reason the fire code was written, contain the language that says unrelated versus related, was targeting boarding houses.
Yeah, and then
people generally are unrelated in the boarding houses. We were able to get sprinklers in those.
Chief,
Yes.
this question is, you hit the nail on the head. There are good landlords, there are bad landlords.
Absolutely.
There's enough laws out there now for the bad landlords. Go after them. Go after them hard. Our group does everything right. you and I sat down and I showed you forms that we do and pass within that group, that every time we send a maintenance man in, whether it be to check the heat, check a faucet, it's mandatory our maintenance men do a complete survey for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide, and that gets filed in that apartment file. We're the good landlords, you've seen that.
And I appreciate that greatly, but like you, we often can't get into buildings, 2 families, 3 families, unless we have a reason. If someone calls, says an emergency, then we can get in. In general, we can't just walk into a 2-family and say, we want to inspect your place. So it's difficult for us. People don't always tell us the truth about how many people live there, who lives there. We don't get to see the smoke detectors. And
That's why we have a leg up on it with the maintenance. When they go in there, it's mandatory. And that's not just one company. The group has adopted that whole concept.
I think a lot of this stuff, like a lot of us have learned from each other. And, you know, Mr. Milanazzo, we only talked a little bit, it's like maybe some kind of a handbook or something can be developed where when you get your inspections, this information is just disseminated or put it on a city website. You know, it could be done by a group of, you know, city officials, landlords, people in neighborhoods, and, you know, a lot of times it's just getting the information out.
sure, we try to put fire safety tips on our Twitter and our Facebook feeds, on our website. We have a public education officer that goes out and educates children and elderly, and they can take some of this information back home to their parents about having an escape plan, having smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors that actually work, having working sprinklers in bigger buildings, and it makes a big difference.
Thanks, Chief.
You're
We
welcome.
have a question back here.
Good evening. First, I wanted to concur and thank this gentleman, Mr. Kaiser, there for the points he made. I think they are very factual and important points you have to consider. So my sort of a question to you folks is, why do you make this decision of labeling upfront, these are students, this person are related, not related? All of those are sort of mixed issues. There are people who are students who live with non-students. And so here you painted a broad picture, while that may not be the case. Also, the younger people have more difficulty finding places to live. If the schools have more rooms than they expected to fulfill, in part, I think it was a disservice that the city did to us by providing so much real estate which pays no taxes to UMass Lowell. I think that was short-sighted. We get no benefit out of it, and now it's coming back and fighting us back for property that we could rent easily to students, non-students, and so forth. So what I'm saying is, don't create these rules of all students or all related or all non-related. Just base it on the fact of what a number of square feet are per head to live in an area, and leave it at that, rather than making broad statements and putting people into little groups and niches that may or may not relate to anything.
Hi, a couple of things. One is, if I bought in a single-family neighborhood because I wanted to live in a single-family neighborhood. I didn't want to live with students next door, with different people coming and going. Students don't stay every year, year after year. I've been a renter, I've been a student, I've lived with unrelated people. So I don't think breaking it down like that. You have zoning rules. So 3 unrelated people can live together, single family. After that, it becomes a boarding house, is that correct?
No.
There's a debate up this end of the road.
Well, what is the zoning, is the zoning now that if it's over 3 people, it's a boarding home? Yes.
Again, I've seen that in writing, but I'm getting heads straight.
I will say that it's wrong. In the state fire code, it's 5 or more people to be a boarding house. I believe the state building code says 3 or more people and it's a boarding house. And they require a license, inspections quarterly, and sprinkler systems.
Right, which is more money for the landlords. Right. So.
More cost.
Instead, more cost for them to put up. And then renting per person, instead of renting for a family, where people are different ages, some may have cars, and some may not have cars, some may be students, some may be babies, some may be elderly. You don't have all the people at the same age. It's a different, you're not renting by the head. And by renting with more than 3 unrelated people, you're renting by the head. You're renting per person versus a family. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm speaking of a single-family zone, SF zone. It's zoned for single families. And I know families are different now, but usually there are more, someone's related. That's all I have to say. It's just,
I have a quick follow-up. Do you think we could get the city to make a determination that we're gonna follow that we're gonna follow the state sanitary code? Because we've been at this for a year, and there's confusion amongst the public, amongst the landlords. Just a simple determination once and for all. Are we gonna follow the sanitary code or the zoning code? I think that's all we're asking, so we can all march to the same tune.
Yes. Don't give it up.
No.
Thank you. No, that's a very good point. And, Charlotte, we're going to wrap this up. But we've actually come to, through a lot of meetings and a lot of discussion, come down to the issue of the state sanitary code versus the zoning code. And I think we're coming down on the side of the state sanitary code. And we start from, again, bring back to the council, to the development service law. But we saw from our position as well. We get on our phones on a regular basis from concerned neighbors saying, look at this single-family house in a single-family neighborhood is being advertised as a 5-bedroom house and would sleep, again, students.
You're our leaders.
I understand.
You need to tell us.
Well, I understand that, but the point that I want to make is it comes back down to enforcement. And again, if Eric Slagle was here, he would say, because he gets these now, he's on the same chain of emails that we're all on, so then he goes and he actually...
You're upsetting us, he's not here.
Well, I know, but he had a family commitment. And we were going to...
This is like the third time.
No, he's been...
I don't mean to disparage him, but he's always missing when we're getting...
No, we've been in every meeting except this one, and the co-chairs talked about this, and because we knew this was going to be a large turnout, and we moved it from the church to here, we didn't want to go back out and say we're moving it to June 10th.
You guys decide, right? Not him? You guys decide.
Correct. I mean, we'll take input, he's the professional, but we'll certainly take input.
Before I came here tonight, I listened to the zoning code meeting, and somebody was up there, they wanted to put a single-family home into a double.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if it passed, because I came here. That's another problem.
Correct.
They should check into
That's
that.
a different board. That was probably before the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah, it was on tonight.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Do we have, okay. We probably have time for maybe 2 questions?
Yeah, maybe two.
Maybe 2. 2 short ones?
If they whip out a ream of paper, make it fun.
My name is El Hacho, and I am a property owner.
Use the microphone,
sorry. My name is El Hacho, and I'm a property owner of a 3-family house in Boston. I'm strongly against the ordinance. The ordinance would affect everyone in the city, including young professionals. People who don't stay with their families until they're married anymore. They uproot, go off to colleges and live with their friends. It isn't as much as a family environment. Part of what their culture gives them is this void of human connections. If you just live with the 2 other people,
maybe in a low zone area, you come home to an empty house. They much rather live with their people around them to support them. It's not just a young people thing. There are good ways to meet people, to get exposed with new ideas and connect with communities by natural where they live. They are also more economical when they live with people sharing with all their expenses and sharing their chores of cooking and cleaning and all other stuff. So I'm against the ordinance.
No, you won't too long. I have a question. What is a family today in 2019? How do you define a family? That's my question.
How do we define a family?
Yeah. When you said a single family, what is it? Does look like? So I don't know. The world is changing. The students are coming together, the young people are coming together on Facebook and creating families. So what is a family?
What is a family nowadays?
That relates to the question of unrelated.
If you look up the definition of family in Western Dictionary,
All right.
enlightened.
Excuse me, just as mayor, I mean, thank you for all the input that everybody gave tonight. I'm gonna tell you something, that's two great committees that I'll take pride in appointing them. Chairman Milanazo and Chairman Cirillo told me one thing. With everybody else, with Councilor Noon, Councilor Leahy, Senator Kennedy. But the thing is,
Controversial.
and controversial, but I'm just talking about, Rita, you and I are on the side here. But here's the issue. We have the needs of the neighborhood, and we have the needs of the landlords who follow the rules and do everything. But what they've promised me is they're not gonna just have, they just had no intention of just having one or two meetings, gather some information, make a decision, and walk away. That's sometimes what has happened in the past. What they're doing is taking their time to get as much information as we possibly can. Sean is here from the city manager's office. After every meeting, the next morning, the city manager gets a complete outline of what happened tonight. And those discussions are carried on with the chairs and other members of the city council. So all I'm saying is, bear with us a little more. Let us get as much information as we possibly can from all of you to assure the neighborhoods, that we're going to take care of the neighborhoods, to assure the owners and landlords that do their job, are given assistance. I inherited a house from my mother at one point. It was a nightmare in the renting. I know what you go through. We try to do the best, but it just doesn't work. So I understand what landlords go through, but I understand what the people in the neighborhood go through. But give these subcommittees their chance, and they will get the information. There's no simple one answer, works for everybody. But the thing is, it's getting the courts on our side to work with the courts, allowing the fire department and chief to have his input, and then the zoning codes. It's just not a simple answer, but but we can develop a reasonable answer. And I like the idea at some point where, as landlords, you're given, here are the rules that you really have to follow. But to the tenants, these are the rules that you have to follow. We can work it out. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, they don't follow those rules now.
No,
They don't follow them now.
no, but the point is, we gotta have rules that everybody agrees. That's the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're starting to run out
I
of
was
time.
just gonna say, we're back to the panel.
We're up
So
against
let's be patient just for a few
Hello.
more minutes. and then
I just wanna thank everyone coming here tonight, especially the Highland neighborhood for hosting this event. I hear your frustration. I know Chairperson Malnazo with the zoning issue. We've been meeting subcommittee for about a year now. It may be time for us to really look at that zoning law. I do concur that the sanitary code, that's what we should go by. I hear the neighborhood concern about enforcement, and we need to do more of that, and budget coming, so we're gonna look at, maybe we need to add more inspectors to help enforce that. And, you know, sometimes you think that putting more inspector out there, it's gonna cost the city. Maybe there's an offset there, because people not complying with the, with the building code and whatnot, they can be fined. We can use that as to pay for those inspectors. So we have to look at it. I will pay close attention to that. And, you know, Chairman Malrazzo said it right. Maybe it's time to look at that, the zoning law, maybe to focus on the sanitary code. That's where the state,
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to say thank you so much for all of you for coming out today. I saw about 6 of us taking notes this evening, writing down all of your concerns and all of your comments. And because your voices are important, they are being heard, and that's what we're here for. So I just wanted to say thank you from the city councilors that were here. Yes.
How will we know when the decision is made? Will there be an additional meeting?
Yeah.
Or will it be at city?
Yes.
There may be one neighborhood zoning subcommittee meeting, and then we'll do a report to the full council.
Can we do that in Centerville? Yes?
With what?
Can we do that in Centerville?
Sure.
Well, I wouldn't mind it.
If
Being
there's
that
gonna
I'm
be
from
another
Centerville.
meeting, you know, if there's gonna be another meeting and there'll be answers at that meeting,
Yes.
so then these landlords will know what the decision is.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Jim, the zoning laws, proposals, whatever they are posted on your website, the city website? That
Yes.
everyone can go in and
Yes.
look at them?
Yes.
Okay, that answers your question.
All right, okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll try to go, I'll try to get a flashlight. I was actually out of town.